Graduate, the first in her family, a working outside the home mother, a big fan of wearing pants once they became fashionably acceptable to Southern women, and we always called her by her first name. She loved proper formality, but she was not 100% dogmatic about it when expressing herself. My husband Basil got to know Annie as a lovely, formal, proper lady who always welcomed him warmly and impressed him with her penchant for C-SPAN, even into her 100s. He learned to ask if it were a hug day, and every now and then she would oblige him one. Annie was a lifelong intellectual. She loved books and was inspired by them. She always had several going each and every week until her eyes failed her at age 100. She loved being able to participate meaningfully and relevantly in a discussion of current events, never devoid of an opinion. She enjoyed stating her beliefs and explaining them. She loved watching Jeopardy, playing Scrabble, bananagrams, doing crossword puzzles, anything to keep her mind sharp. Even after her vision failed, she would spell out loud to people and explain how the words might sound the same, but they were spelled differently and had different meanings. She enjoyed reading good, clean fiction, as well as nonfiction books about history, theology, education, and more. I remember her specifically enjoying the simple wisdom in the classic, "All I Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten." Somewhere out there, someone could make big bucks writing the Annie Poindexter version. Read your Bible, call your family, do one load of laundry every day. Do what you can with what you've been given. If something's worth doing, it's worth doing right. And my favorite, the three-parter. Do the right thing because you're supposed to, or do the right thing because I told you to. Or, if all else fails, do the right thing because someone I know is watching you and I'll find out if you don't. When you live to be 102, you spend a lot of time in retirement. In Annie's case, it was 40 years long. She decided to take early retirement to take care of my brother and me when we were small children and our parents both worked full-time. Annie and Gar took us everywhere they went, and they enjoyed going all over their favorite Commonwealth of Virginia. We went to more historical sites and museums than most children go to their entire childhood. But we also went to local everyday places like the bank, the bakery, and the library. Every outing was meaningful and special because Annie and Gar put us in the forefront of learning. Annie would always drive. Gar was able to, she just wouldn't let him. Some mornings she would just send us outside in the backyard to contemplate nature and set us up in front of a puzzle with Gar in the afternoons. We had simple snacks that were healthy, like cheese, big blocks of cheese. She was a big fan of cheese. Fruit like grapes or orange slices, and we learned how to quietly observe birds in their nests, or the ivy that grew, or how to tell that you were smelling mint from other flowers that she had in her backyard. We were very lucky in that we were children of the 80s, but we had a very slow and nurturing, safe space to live when we were little at Annie and Gar's. My cousins also had meaningful experiences with Annie and Gar when they would visit Richmond or when Annie and Gar would drive up to Bel Air, Maryland. They would have fun days together going where the girls enjoyed, like the bakery or the playground, and occasionally stop by the toy store. Annie would French braid the girls' hair and work on special sewing projects with them too. Annie and Gar and my cousins had a very special relationship. Annie was proud of all of her grand and great-grandchildren and enjoyed spending time with them whenever they could. When Garnet got sick, Annie cared for him in their home for 2 years, getting very little sleep and forgoing her social and spiritual activities. After Gar passed, she got back to being busy with bridge, women's club, and all the groups at church and elsewhere. It was at this time that Annie began her 30-year career of teaching ESL in her home, a practice that even included a cooking class for folks who didn't necessarily know about teaspoons, cups, and pints. They would make meals together so that they would feel like they were acclimating to our culture. She had many stories of students for whom she helped unlock the doors to being able to read and spoke of them with the highest regard. She loved using Scrabble and bananagrams to educate her students, and one of the most treasured gifts she ever received in her later years, as she would tell us, was her New Oxford Dictionary. "There are two things I only do for love, never for money," she would say, babysitting and sewing. And she did plenty of both for her family. She could also cook. She could tend flowers like nobody else. She had many talents. As for sewing, she made her own wedding dress, as well as many other dresses for herself, her daughters, her granddaughters. She made my prom dress, which was supposed to match the other girls' dresses that were made at a professional dressmaker. You couldn't tell the difference, and to this day, I still treasure the gift. As for cooking, Annie loved to cook for her family and taught me so much of what I know about having guests over for a meal on special occasions. She delighted in the formalities that set people apart from other mammals. In addition to the delicious plates of food, there was the china and the silver, the gravy boat and the pickle fork, the salad fork and the dessert spoon, the teaspoons and the footed dessert dishes. There was an elaborate ritual for serving the meal, which involved passing plates rather than the dishes of food around. And so you really had to pay attention to make sure you got what you wanted and how much. Once the plates had all been passed, seasoning shared, everything in place, Annie would then ask the blessing, only after which time could the eating commence. I'm reminded of one Thanksgiving in particular when my brother, I believe all my cousins were there. It felt like all of Richmond was there. And I were young, and we had reached that portion of the meal where all that was left to do before we could eat was to pray. We were all looking at Annie expectantly, and she knew it. She took that golden opportunity to teach. "We will have our blessing," she said, making sure to catch everyone's eye, as soon as Jennifer removes her elbows from the table. Needless to say, I got the message, and I still heed her wisdom to this day if I want to eat. As I mentioned, Annie was a natural horticulturist. She could keep plants and cut flowers alive better than anyone I know. She was the plant whisperer. I've seen poinsettias in the 4th of July and Easter lilies at Halloween. She also enjoyed learning about and advising on home decorating, especially for all the various holidays, but in general too. She loved keeping up with real estate in Richmond. She liked to discuss low-risk investment ventures. She always did truly seem to know the right thing to do and how to do it. She was a touchstone for family and friends, a guru for appropriate and wise conduct. People that were friends of friends would call Annie and ask her for her advice. Annie's experienced so much joy and also a lot of pain in her 102 years. Joyfully, the arrival of grandchildren and great-grandchildren, most recently, Grace and Landon's son, Alban Ross, who was 4 months old. Annie also experienced many significant losses of many beloved family members and dear friends. She survived the pain and showed us how to do it too, by focusing on the needs of others. When my dad died, Annie would come over to our house each morning after my mom had left for work and open the blinds and say, "Wake up, nighttime is for sleeping. Time to get up and get on with it." She was an invaluable resource for my mom and was doing us a great service too, though as teenagers we may not have appreciated that at the time. When my mom was terminally ill, Annie made it possible for her to live her final weeks in Annie's home. My brother and I were her physical caregivers, but Annie provided my mom and us the stable home, the 3 meals a day, and the encouragement. There were many, many other times Annie has provided her immense capacity to shoulder pain to family and friends. and this will be my last little story. When the Beltway sniper came to Richmond, I was nervous about going to get gas. I was in my 20s and I thought the news was going to happen to me. Annie understood that and she said, "I'll go with you." So I accepted her offer. Annie and I went to the Exxon near her house, and I jokingly said to her, I remember she was wearing a pink, ruffly turtleneck blouse and a purple jumper, and I looked at her in the back seat and I said, "I'm going out to get gas, Annie. Cover me." My Aunt Jenny and I are convinced that Annie lived as long as she did in order to be there for emotional support she could provide those around her. She was truly stalwart about the downfalls of extremely older age, saying, "When you've gotten to be as old as I am, you learn you must make younger friends." And she delighted so many friends, from old to young, lifelong and brand new. Annie died on Friday, August 3rd at 6:30 a.m., just 15 days shy of her 103rd birthday. A gentle rain was falling, a much less flashy, thunderous exit than her stormy entrance into this world.